Today we take a look at people who used their brains, considered the evidence, and drew conclusions that were headed in the right direction. Alexander Dallas Back, who was Ben Franklin's great-grandson, was interested in the depth of the Pacific Ocean, and he asked himself, "How can I calculate such?" Alex collected all of the data that he could on the size and intensity of tidal waves, as well as when the incident happened that caused them, and when the waves reached distant shores. Years later, and with modern sonar equipment, it was learned that Alex was within 15% of the actual average depth of the Pacific. As the president of the National Academy of Sciences, Alex secured greater government involvement in science, and through the Franklin Institute, he instituted boiler tests to promote safety for steamboats. This paved the way for predictive maintenance. Take something out of service before it has a catastrophic failure. We also take a look at a fellow who defines for us, standing up for what you really believe. Giordano Bruno was an Italian philosopher, astronomer, and mathematician, whose theories anticipated modern science. The most notable of these were his theories of the infinite universe and the multiplicity of worlds, in which he rejected the traditional geocentric, or Earth-centered astronomy, and he intuitively went beyond the Copernican heliocentric, or sun-centered theory, which still maintained a finite universe with a sphere of fixed stars. Although one of the most important philosophers of the Italian Renaissance, Bruno's various passionate utterings led to opposition with the voices of authority. In 1592, after a trial, he was kept imprisoned for 8 years and interrogated periodically just for the fun of it. When in the end he refused to recant, he was burned at the stake by the church for heresy. And finally, Dimitri Mendeleev cancelled a planned visit to a factory on February 17 in 1869, and he worked on the problem of how to arrange the chemical elements in a systematic way. To begin, he wrote each element and its chief properties on a separate card and arranged these in various patterns. Eventually, he achieved a layout that suited him, and he copied it down on paper. Later that same day he decided a better arrangement by properties was possible, and made a copy of that, which had similar elements grouped in vertical columns, unlike his first table, which grouped them horizontally. These historic documents still exist, and mark the beginning of the form of the periodic table as commonly used today. The date is given by the Julian calendar, which was in use in Russia at the time. A few years later, the Russians were late to the Olympic Games because they were still using the old calendar. And then the Soviets tried to implement a metric calendar of sorts with 5-day weeks and 30-day months, but this was just too confusing as the Allies tried to coordinate battle strategies against the Axis powers, so the Soviets moved Russia to the same calendar that everyone else was using. Encourage using your brain.